Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. While Thomas is getting ready to talk to us, I just want to say that we're sorry that we couldn't get out of Truth News headlines to you today like we regularly do. It looked like one of our contributors put a little nasty bug in his email to us, and it took our site down just as soon as we pushed it up. Not our site, but the post down. But we found another way to get it to you, and everything should be fine for our next post. And if you happen on this audio sometime next year, well, obviously this message is irrelevant. But it is a cyber war out there, isn't it, Thomas? And it isn't pretty, is it?
It is ugly and getting uglier every day.
Yeah, it is. And actually, it's really this whole Q phenomena. And let me explain to folks, we enjoyed playing, at least I did, looking at Q early on, thought it was interesting. We realized that it got people to think and start talking about many of the issues that we have written about extensively at the American Intelligence Media. But this fall, we started to see big signs that it was a PSYOP operation, so we began to look at it. Now, we did wait, since Jerome Corsi seemed to be leading the whole evaluation, the daily evaluation of what the Q posts were. We were waiting for him to explain to his members why this possibly could be a PSYOP, but it never came.
No, it didn't.
It didn't. So that's why we had to tackle it right on. And I am very sorry for what appears to be pain and suffering of being awakened before you were ready to be awakened. So, that having been said, we're now moving on, and today we're going to look at the results of that, which has really been a large uncovering on the dirt about Jeff Sessions.
Yes, with this being our Q interpretation, we needed to first frame it in the Q cyber wars that are going on, and we are now uncovering all kinds of things from directions people have pointed us. But we also want to give you a warning. The new anonymous tape that's come out is a PSYOPs. So be careful with that one. We got PSYOPsed ourselves, and our experts tell us that in one single pixel inside of a picture, which you have to know to go into the div, I don't know what that is, and then go 3 levels down, and then you find a pixel that has a watermark, and in that watermark is a little teensy tiny message, and that whole message destroyed your post.
Mm-hmm.
That was sabotage.
Right.
That was what he and the experts, Michael McKibben and the experts, are working on de-sabotaging, taking out the tripwires and taking out all of the stuff that is put into the plum books, which tell who is in the SES. And so we're seeing this everywhere. This type of cyber warfare has invaded Silicon Valley. We put up recently 2 audios on that to show you that ex-Israeli Unit 8200, which is basically like the American NSA, after these people trained for 9 years in a program called Talpiot, which they openly say is what they do. They come to Silicon Valley, and there's one company that's opened 27 companies in 27 years, all from Israel, but all the companies are in America, and they're some of the top, most brilliant. Basically, let's remember, when you go onto the internet, you're dealing with any of this, it's now cyber warfare. So these are cyber warlords. So they're trained, and then they're basically weaponized, and then they go out and they start their own groups, and if they're good enough, the government will absorb them if the American government can absorb them. But there's all these independent companies out there, and that's who we are saying is conducting a lot of the cyber warfare in America from corporations that were part of different types of military intelligence, and particularly the ones that we've been looking at now is the Israeli. The Israelis make the Intel 3, 5, and 7. They make microchips. I didn't know that. That means the Israelis have all of our IP secrets, and they can, just like our government, through Intel computers, on top is a little thing called an ME, a mechanical engine, and that can come in, take over your computer remotely, get past all your passwords. It's built into your computer. You can't get it out. It's in all computers. Those have to be here, or they're not allowed. They're not allowed to be produced. Now, recently, as we told you, Trump went to China and said to China, we're not allowing your Lenovo's in this country. Your microchips are made in your country, and it's cyber warfare. Sorry, the only ones we're going to allow in now if we make them ourselves in your country. Well, we do that also in Israel, but that means we give away all of our secrets and all of the backdoor ways that the NSA had as practically a contractual agreement for any of these companies to come online. So when we're saying that there's a cyber warfare because Q was knocked down all at once, we're not sure all that happened, but we are sure that at the bottom it says, scumbag sessions and fake Q were just exposed the other day by American intelligence media. We believe that whoever put that up, and we said it was anonymous because it says anonymous at the top. We were reading the name at the top. We don't know who did it. We were given a message from different directions saying who did it. We don't know. But anyway, as far as we know, we have people listening. As I say, I don't go to any of those sites, either the Hub, the Great Awakenings Board, or 4 or 8chan. Nope, don't go to any of them. I knew it was a trick after it moved from 4 to 8chan and the trip code was changed and people brought it to me and I went, no. The first one was really cool. The second one is weird. I didn't know what it was. Now I know what it is. It's a psyops. It is a perfection of what they learned from Facebook. How fast can we take over something that is a popular movement and weaponize it? And that's what's going on. That's the reason that we were taken down. That's the reason these sites were taken down. That was to prove to us. And then Cicada had predicted it and showed us in their videos and in their riddles and all this stuff and demonstrated to us again and again. They knew it was going to happen beforehand. They predicted it, but they didn't do it themselves. Now, the reason we're talking about Jeff Sessions is at the bottom is what I just read. It said at the top, it said something like, I don't have the top, but it said, Sessions is controlled by clowns in America. Now, some people say that's the CIA. Some people would say that's the rogue CIA. Some people would say there's actually a group called Clowns in America. That's all true. But then he said, Hitlery, and as in Hillary, but Hitler, right? And I'm thinking, wait a second. No. We have the dirt on him because he has a lot of stock in prisons. And until Obama rescinded that using private prisons, he was making a fortune off making sure that, legislation went through that supported private prisons with his stock in Geo Group and CoreCivic. Now, we've also shown that he has stock in Vanguard, which means every time that the military-industrial complex makes money, he does. So he's basically, we knew that through his stocks, he was a good Republican. We knew that he was involved with some criminal activity with which we can't prove, but some other criminal activity with, both the Clintons and the Bushes, actually. And now we see that he's definitely connected to the Clintons very, very, very clearly. And the reason we know that is this says that he's the number one person we should look at for the Uranium One. Well, we weren't doing that. We had called him out on other things. So if you don't know the Uranium One, this is the way that it works. And then I'm going to tell you why he's compromised. More than compromised. As we said yesterday, I think, on the tape, if it's Russian, then, it's about Sessions. First off, before I get into this and tell you how he's compromised, let me tell you what happened. Sergei Kislyak had a secret meeting with Jeff Sessions in April 2016, and it was a setup. It was at the Mayflower Hotel, and it was during the campaign, and so it was, just a quick meeting, and he thought it had to do with his job as being a chairperson of many of these committees and on all these committees. Now, remember, there were also 2 telephone calls with Sergei Kislyak, and that's what we thought was under contention, that he was accused that something happened in those conversations on the telephone. And then we find out, well, no, actually, there were 2 telephone calls and there were 2 meetings. And one of the meetings was recorded, and it was a setup, and it was part of a sting. And they got a conversation with him and Sergei Kislyak, which nobody knows about. They brought it to Sessions and said, look, you're compromised. We know you're going to go on through with this, but right now, look, you're compromised here. Now, what were they talking about there? It was because Sergei Kislyak and all the Russians say, please, take all the sanctions off of us. It's killing us. And now we've just doubled down, and because of the supposed cyber attack on our energy industry, Trump allowed there to be more sanctions, and because of this cyber and because of the gas attack, now we've expelled more diplomats. I wonder what all those diplomats are doing there anyway. What do those guys do as jobs besides be spies, really? I mean, they're all spies. I mean, surely everyone knows that, right? kick them all out. And if they can't be vetted and they are not in a cyber war against you, then they shouldn't be allowed in. Now, let's go back here, and I want to make this perfectly clear. We are under cyber attack. And I don't want to get too specific, but it was John Brennan who had actually, the last time publicly we were found to be wiretapping the Congress. It was directly it was John Brennan. It came into the news. Do people not remember this? And he says, well, we had these agents coming from foreign lands, and so we had to put the bugs in there, and we couldn't take them out. We've got to take them out. Yeah, that's why they're still there. Wrong. There have been foreign spies spying on everything in the Congress from day one. Now, let me tell you how this happens. Imran Awan, who we now know is not only a Pakistani spy, but he was working also for other intelligence agencies, particularly through rogue, what I would call rogue, not Mossad, not the State of Israel's intelligence agency, because we have a CIA, then we have a rogue CIA. There's a Mossad, rogue Mossad. But once you train in the program I just mentioned, 9-year training, then you are a weaponized cyber warrior. And you go to the countries that you're trying to spy on. Why wouldn't they spy on America? We are the lifeblood of Israel. Without us, everyone knows Israel's always spied on us. I mean, come on, am I saying something different that people have not been paying attention to for decades? Anyway, Imran Awan, of course, we know he reached into the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. He had Podesta's passwords. He had Hillary's passwords. He had the DCCC's passwords. He had everybody, 80 people in the Congress, because Pelosi ordered them to go with him. It was all one big connected spy ring. It went through Becerra's office in that particular router and server, and then it went to a house that George Webb found, and that server was active, and that server then went to a server in Pakistan. And believe it or not, $120,000 of equipment was stolen from the Congress. This is all known because the Inspector General's investigation on Imran Awan that said there were, I forget how many counts, dozens of counts of espionage. Nothing has happened because Sessions is on the take because he was taken down by a sting attack I didn't know about until just yesterday, and now it's in the news. You just posted it, as a matter of fact, one version of it, but there are many versions of this now out that Sessions was compromised before Trump was elected. It was another Comey sting, and it was all about Russians. Why would Kislyak go out of his way to meet with Sessions at the Mayflower Hotel on the campaign trail, call him twice and try to get him to talk about sanctions, and meet with him 2 other times under his capacity as a senator? Why? He's always been a Russian. He's always been on the Russian payroll. And I'm going to prove that to you. Thank you so much, whoever put us onto this to make us look. Here's the deal. When Frank Justra bought a fake uranium mine, a Kazakh fake uranium mine, and called it Eurasia, it was because Bill Clinton and him had decided to continue the scam of selling Russian uranium to America through a company for 20 years, perfectly legal, called U.S. Enrichment, that was only enriching George Bush Sr. and his group. And for 20 years, they took uranium that was downblended and brought to America and then used in our nuclear facilities, and now that actually started to control the entire uranium production and market in America. That wasn't good enough for Putin. He then got rights, not only to previously through this company, to downblend his uranium even in America, but we built a facility for him to downblend it in Russia and then send it here. But he tricked us. He actually would send it without being downblended and then charge us for all of that. And he wore out our Paducah, Kentucky downblending facility and enrichment facility, and they had to build a new one in Eunice, New Mexico. And so the Uranium One scandal has been known for a long time. It's gone under different names. It used to be called megatons for megawatts through the U.S. Enrichment Corporation. Then it has a new contract through Fusion LLC. Don't get confused, not Fusion GPS, Fusion LLC. They're continuing all of this, and we are doing all of this. We let this company, Eurasia, fake company, in Kazakhstan, bought a mine, fake mine. It was empty. They turned it into Uranium One. That happened when the Clintons saw that his best friend, Frank Giustra, they decided to do this. It was a plan. They created a company later called the Clinton-Giustra Sustainability Growth Initiative, which I just found out again today in multiple sources that once the Uranium One scandal went down, Frank Giustra gave $100 million to that fund. Carlos Slim gave $100 million. And the very man who gave $145 million, who was the head of Uranium One, whose name is, he's in the news, everyone should know him, Ian Telfer, that's nothing new. He gave, through 9 different people, $145 million to the Clinton Foundation because the Uranium One deal went down because she approved it. And now I see that Jeff Sessions on 10 different committees had to turn a blind eye. Matter of fact, it looks like he may have led the charge. So,
are you telling me that Jeff Sessions put Hillary Clinton's operation ahead and in front of the American people?
Yes, Betsy, I am.
He's a traitor.
He's an enemy of the state, exactly as we said. Now we have the proof.
Now, continue on, because I am just hoping that there are people on white hats on this that listen to us and do what's the right thing and arrest this man immediately.
Yes, because when you're talking about the cabal, you need to realize that the entire Congress is controlled by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Now, you would think the U.S. Chamber of Commerce had something to do with the U.S. government. No, it is a private corporation that does not reveal its records, and it's the largest donor and the largest lobbyist on Capitol Hill. It makes everything else pale. Their money comes from foreign agents, washed through American companies, just like the Unit 8220. If you think for a second that the rogue Mossad cyber intelligence unit should be allowed to create companies that then control the sensitive cyber commands, even the cryptological codes, which are controlled by a Russian spy whose name is Michael Aparovich. We've been saying this for, 2 years now. And we give away all this stuff because that's the deal. Everyone is getting a piece of the pie. So everyone on Capitol Hill follow their lobbyists. A lobbyist should not be allowed on Capitol Hill, just like lawyers should not be allowed. And there should be term limits, and there should be no career politicians, period. And for campaign elections, everyone gets the same amount of money, and they have to go on a public broadcasting station to do their campaigning, period. Why would there be anything else? If you allow the money to determine who wins, and then when they get in office, the lobbyists determine whether they're going to stay incumbents and whether they're going to continue, then you have a rigged system. Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Then we now know that the Senior Executive Service has many different names and reaches into 10,000 jobs that basically control the government, the bureaucracy. And we've been exposing all of that. So when they said that we had named some of these things, it was in linking with the cabal that we are now revealing. And we are sorry. We don't want to hear people say deep state and swamp. We want to hear them say exactly who this is and when. So on October 22nd, 2010, the Committee for Foreign Investment in the United States, which Hillary was on, that she says she never went to, though almost everyone on that committee was one of her people, and most of them were SES. So SES means shadow government, so they obey whatever they're told to do. Case number 10-40. That was when they allowed the purchase of Uranium One was purchasing arms because Eurasia had turned into a company named ARMZ, trying to hide the fact that it was really a Clinton-initiated scam with Frank Giustra. So then they allowed arms to buy Uranium One. Now, why was that significant? Now, normally that would just go by and you think, no, so what? Because arms was owned by Rosatom. Putin handles all nuclear deals in Russia, period, himself personally. He runs Rosatom personally, and he goes to Kazakhstan because that's where the largest uranium holdings, second largest uranium holdings in the world are. And could be the third by now, but the first and the second, for some reason, don't want to enrich anything. They leave it either to America, and now we have paid for Putin to build enrichment plants, 2 of them. One of them to downblend, which he didn't downblend, he just took the money, And he built an enrichment plant because they get all the uranium they want from Kazakhstan. And then the second one was during Hillary Clinton and Obama's nuclear summit, where they gave $400 million for them to build another plant. So the entire uranium market for the world, as we have exposed, because when CFIUS, through Hillary Clinton, and the approval of Jeff Sessions on the Armed Services Committee, the Budget Committee, the Environment and Public Works Committee, the Judiciary Committee, the Terrorism and Technology and Homeland Security had to approve that. So he was on that committee. That's a Uranium One. He had to agree to it. Border and Security, he had to agree to it. Crime and Drugs, he had to have agreed to it. These agreements had to go through these committees before CFIUS could agree to it. He was on all these committees.
Are there any records that show that he in any way tried to oppose them or expose them?
Absolutely not, and that's my point. He should have been the number one person to see this was a scam.
But yet he's sitting as Attorney General protecting all these people in Uranium One.
Because he's been compromised.
That includes Trey Gowdy, Mr. Purple Tie, Trey Gowdy.
Trey Gowdy's on the list here. We have to go after him next.
Because, what Betsy wants to know? The Benghazi hearings? That was a lot of uproar. Whatever happened? Was that all just spinning and no results?
Yes, it was to cover up by a long, drawn-out, fake congressional hearing. Now, the reason Trey Gowdy is doing some good things, and the worst thing he's doing is he's saying that Robert Mueller's a good guy.
Well, listen.
And the investigation is sound.
If Trey Gowdy is anywhere in this mix, he needs to step forward, be a patriot, and set this right.
He's not going to.
Yes, he is. He's right here.
No, he's not going to step forward. The reason is he's already been chosen for his next job. He already told us what it is. And he's going to be. Well, he said he's going to be in the government as a lawyer, and he wants to stop this kind of bickering, and he wants to go for the big time.
Well, is he going to get an SES appointment and get one of those fat, happy salaries that they have?
You bet. You bet.
I have to say something. Let me get something off my chest. You've got your finger there, but this is what I like to call Obama's army, because they're his troops and they are inside of our government. And I know you guys were drilling down on how much these people get made, not only with their salary but with all the awards that they make. They make bukus of money, while our military goes underpaid, our veterans get poor care in the VA, and these SES thugs are yucking it up on the taxpayer dollars. I am so livid. They need to be reduced to $1 a year.
Through the Holman Clause. I agree. To say SES fouls my mouth.
They're Obama's army, and they're getting paid more than our own military.
Now let's get the list. This is the list given to us. Now we've already called a lot of these people out. I don't know if I read this, but now let's read this after Betsy's remarks. Listen. These are the people. Jeff Sessions. Okay, and also these are the Uranium One people. Now I don't know this, but so far I looked at Sessions. He has 10 compromises here. I mean, he is literally in charge of the Committee on Nuclear everything, both in the armed services, in the budget, in the environment, and crossing borders, and in the judiciary. This would have been in his face 10 times in a row that he would have had to have ignored it. And in some of these cases, border security, he's the chairman. We pointed out that the company that was later, let's follow this through again. Now, this is complicated. Frank Giustra with Bill Clinton bought Eurasia. They bought a fake mine in with Putin from the beginning. They changed the name to ARMS. They changed the name to Uranium One. Then they changed the name to ARMS. And then ARMS is a branch of Rosatom, which is Putin's nuclear, but they name it 10AM in America, 10X in Russia. 10AM and 10X are the same company. So for 10 years, we allowed them to come and to our largest uranium holdings, dig it up, 20% of our uranium, take it to our own taxpayer enrichment plants, enriched it, didn't charge them for it. And by the way, the profits of that plant go to England, Germany, and Holland, the three imperialistic groups that we say have never ended the first revolution. They now control our only enrichment plant. So if we really were in a nuclear war, we'd have to ask them if we could make some. We'd have to ask Putin for the uranium, and Putin's company Fusion LLC has the contract to take apart our missiles and take the plutonium-239 out of it and downgrade it and downblend it. Same thing with the uranium that's in there. We are asking the Russians and invited them in and have been doing this for 30 years since 1984. Isn't that a funny thing? Since 1984, we invited the Russians in. They have complete control of our uranium. People in Congress know this. Jeff Sessions knows this. Of course, Trey Gowdy knows it. So here's the people on the list that are the criminals that they know of, that they're pointing at us to, that we have yet to reveal, and now we're revealing them. And this is all about Q. Go to the Q site, to the hub. You'll see this was posted. It was telling everyone. It's not just telling us. But it did say that American intelligence media had exposed this the other day. Well, we didn't expose it enough, and so thank you whoever pointed us in this way. Jeff Sessions, guilty. Mueller carried the yellow cake under yellow cake uranium enriched in the Eunice, New Mexico plant, which is a lie that they intercepted. The lie is, Mueller tells the lie that the FBI intercepted yellow cake uranium in Russia, in Crimea or Georgia. They're not sure, but somehow they intercepted this, took it out of Russia, brought it here, and Putin then wanted to see it.
What's the FBI doing working outside of the borders of the United States?
Thank you. So Putin wants to see it. Why does Putin want to see what was just stolen from his... Because supposedly it was going to be used in a dirty bomb or something, blah, 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 blah. So they go back and forth until Mueller himself, under direct orders of Hillary, takes the yellow cake uranium to Putin. What was it really? That was enriched uranium from our own mines. It was enriched in Eunice, New Mexico, in a plant that taxpayers paid for, that foreigners own, and then it was shipped illegally by the head of the FBI under orders of the Secretary of State to our enemy. Why? Because they're our friends in uranium. That's where all the deals are. I just named $345 million the Clinton foundations and the other foundation got from this. And the beauty of it is, the Clinton Justra Sustainability Growth Fund also donated $25 million to the Clinton Foundation. Now that's the stupidest thing ever.
How many crimes are we talking about? We're talking about thousands of crimes. Endless. Now let's keep going down the list. We got Christopher Wray.
Wait, Mueller, guilty as can be. Comey came in, covered it up. That's what he's covering up. Remember, when Comey was told that Hillary's worst problem in the election is everybody knows she's connected to Uranium One and the Russian deals, Comey got involved and ran 28 treasonous crimes. Now I understand 29 as of today. That would be the setup of Jeff Sessions. Though Jeff Sessions was already in the Russians' pocket, now they actually are going to accuse him of it. And because he is, of course he's terrified. If you say Russian salad dressing, Jeff Sessions wakes up and runs out of the restaurant. Christopher Wray, he was part of the criminal division of the FBI. Of course he knew about this. Trey Gowdy, we used to like him, but when he said Mueller was good, we knew he was bad. Now that he's leaving, that's to hide his crimes.
And and you know people by their words. That's what happened with me with Q. As soon as Q said, trust Sessions, I went, okay, we've got a major psyop here. We have to alert people.
Yep. He put us on it. We realized he was a enemy of the state, and we declared him as such. Obama's on the list, of course. He had to be complicit. Hillary's on the list. We just named all of that. Rosenstein is covered up. He's been part of this group of Comey, Mueller, and Rosenstein and his wife. His wife has represented Comey and Mueller multiple times. His wife has represented Hillary and Bill multiple times. So why is Rosenstein not recusing himself? Rosenstein is crooked as all of them. Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Awan brother criminals. Now, I didn't understand why that would be on there with Uranium One, but without that, they couldn't have got some of the information because Awan Imran, through Andre Carson, a year and a half of letters demanding from these committees, the very committees that Sessions sat on, allowed Imran Awan to have access to the congressional SCIF, which we believe that to this very day is still bugged, and the server in the Congress is still working, and it still goes to a proxy server, which then goes to Pakistan, which we paid for, which are tax dollars because they stole $120,000, which they set up. And Rahm Emanuel, we are told by the IT people that we're wondering why Imran Awan and his fake 4 other IT people who never came to work were paid more than even Congress people and senators, and why no one ever stopped their crazy security breaches, and why they who don't even come to work, Imran didn't even come to work, why would they, for 2 years, insist that he get a SCIF clearance?
Well, wait a minute. You're saying Imran Awan, and we know now that it was much more than the Pakistanis he was working for.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it was this rogue Mossad group.
Let's call it we're going to call it what it is. Let's call it there's a program they all went through called Talpiot, but let's just call them the Rogue 8200.
Okay.
They're the Rogue 8200. These are people who are trained to be cyber warriors.
These are really the enemies right here. I mean, you've got your domestic enemies with the SES, and you've got the corrupt system, and you've got folks like Sessions that are compromising U.S. security by just turning a blind eye. It makes you wonder how much money he got for turning that blind eye. And then you've got Imran Awan running intel to the enemy.
Recently, they tried to put forth a bill in the Congress saying that no one in Congress could be charged with the crime of insider trading. If we looked at what stocks they owned, you would see that almost all of them with any money. And why is it that all of them have a lot of money when they end after a career? But, where do they get that money? So the Awan scandal and espionage is all connected to this. Then John McCain, we all know he's crooked as can be. Most of his stock is in Raytheon. So every time there's a war, every time they sell a missile, he makes money. Lindsey Graham, I haven't looked into him and Harry Reid, but I'm telling you this. The stuff they're doing now that is good, along with what Trey Gowdy did before, was to cover them, to make them look a certain way. So they're causing certain things to happen, but those are political in my opinion, even though I'm sure that what this person indicated to us is they are enriching themselves through the Uranium One Deal. I'm sure they sit on major committees along with Trey Gowdy that have turned a blind eye to all of this, while they stirred up the pot and made other things the big issue, which were political, which would help their party, because if their party wins, they get more money through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and all of the lobbyists and all the people who support them. So they're all clowns in America, agents of the banking cartel trying to take America down. You know what? The banking cartel is real, so don't get wigged out on that phrase. But that's exactly who stands behind the military-industrial complex and Highlands Forum. And we want to thank whoever it was that took down the Highlands Forum site.
Just take a moment and say thank you.
Thank you, whoever took down the evil Highlands Forum site.
Evil.
They have basically created all of the weapons back to the end of World War II forward, and it rested upon this group that was independent, and it came out of the Office of Naval Assessment. And Andrew Marshall, who we're calling out big time, he's a member of SES.
Are you kidding? They find Andrew Marshall in the SES book almost every year that it's published.
So, just to give you the proof, Sessions is in the Armed Service Committee. He's on the Nuclear Subcommittee, one of the major players, one of the senior players. He is on the Subcommittee for Strategic Force, which means everything to do with uranium. So everything to do with uranium, uranium check, uranium check. He's on the Strategic Force for Air, Land, and Sea, which all use nuclear. Check, check, check. Oh, that's more checks than I even counted. He's on the budget, so he would have known that all this money was being spent line by line. He was there. Check, guilty. Environment and Public Works, he's on that. Clean Air and Nuclear Safety, a second nuclear committee is on. 2 committees that would have had to approve this CFIUS. 3 committees. Everything nuclear had to give a check for CFIUS to go ahead with this, and Borders and Homeland Security specifically.
Well, he's either daft or just plain out corrupt.
He's always been bought by both sides.
Yeah.
And yet he looks so sweet.
No, he's not really. He just looks kind of usable.
And then he is on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. So when they transport this uranium in and out of this country, they have to have a specific approval of that committee, and he's on it. So we pointed out that the Transportation International Logistics was carrying 10 AMs uranium, which hadn't even been downblended, across the Canadian border, and that's who got it to Syria, Iran, all of our enemies. North Korea was all provided by him turning his head and not noticing that we were shipping weapons-grade uranium outside of this country. Well, I figured that out in
Wouldn't it-
less than 10 seconds when I looked up Paducah, Kentucky, and said, who has an international pass to be able to take things across the border, and where could they be possibly going if they were leaving from Paducah? I named the place. It took, 15 seconds?
So, is it reasonable to make the assumption that Jeff Sessions knew this?
He had to have known it. Impossible for him not to have known it. He's on the Judiciary Committee, which is oversight for administrative oversight in courts. He was on for crimes and drugs, so everything going across the border. Border security. He's like 4 committees, major committees for things going across the border. He had to have signed off at least 3 times for that I know of, and maybe more, for that CFIUS order of October 22nd, 2010, which Hillary approved. She lies and said she never went to the committee. And no. We now have that people come out because they're getting caught with the fact that everybody supported Hillary because everybody was supporting Hillary. So everybody went dark. The second you shook Hillary's hand, you went dark. If you smiled at her and she was take you into her camp, she's got this list. She's got a list of everyone that she's got in D.C. and everyone who's on the bad list. Bad lists are being attacked. The good list are many SES members. Matter of fact, we now know that the SES has a Clinton branch in the Google office, and it is called the Clinton Executive Institute, where they train foreigners, spies, who are coming into the CIA and for FBI counterintelligence and for Rasputin's group, the National Counterterrorism Group. The spies come in through Hillary's group. So they're trained to be SES members by Hillary. Because why? Wherever money flows, Clintons went there, they jumped in, and they created a tax. This is nothing more than a tax on SES. So now, thank you, George Webb, for discovering that. We have asked George Webb to dig into this, and he is. Thank you. We didn't know that.
And the other thing about this is that in order to get into SES, you don't have to have a security clearance. In fact, there are many questions that regular civilian employees would have to answer about their citizenship and who they associate with and those things that an SES employee never has to do. So you can have someone maybe like a Huma Abedin sitting right next to the Secretary of State who has a long trail of Muslim Brotherhood shit behind her.
Completely. You don't... matter of fact, we just found out. I'm sorry to have to bust him because I love his movie.
I know.
Should I bust him?
No, I think we have to tell people what we found. We found out this morning, and I was just shocked.
There was an entire program. First off, Imran Awan came in on a lottery program, and all of his culprits, his gang, came in by chain migration. Okay, but we now know that through the Clinton Executive Institute, they've been bringing in people like crazy, and there's also then that's the Democratic one. Then there's also Republican ones. Well, we found out that there's a certain, I don't know what you'd have to call him. He came into the country, on one of these programs.
Let's not interpret it. It is what it is. Dinesh D'Souza shows up as an SES employee,
and he worked for Reagan.
Yeah,
as a 24-year-old consultant fresh from India, straight out of college, and he goes in and he then becomes he was an advisor for who? He wasn't an advisor. He was a techie. And who was he a techie for? Bush Sr., not Reagan. So when you say Reagan, after the first 2 years, you're saying Bush Sr., so don't forget that. So we find out that all these people, now we're going to be able to look up all the criminals and all the culprits, and what we find is there are secret categories in SES where they literally say, we cannot divulge the name. These are spies, and these spies are literally being paid by us. And not only that, why is it that every criminal that we find, that we plug in, gets paid more than civil service rates?
And more than the military. I keep going back to
more
this.
Than generals and admirals.
It's
more
egregious.
Some of these people are make more money than
We
an
don't
entire
know how
company
much
of
they
men.
make. We don't
That's
know.
correct. We don't know how
many awards
most of them make.
Yes. Well, they have
one
their
single
salary.
award. Tell them about one single award.
Yeah, they have their salaries, but then they have all these awards. Remember, people, they fly their own flag. They have their own little lapels, pins. They separate themselves out as being a separate government from the United States government. And they give each other these special awards. And we were finding out that those awards, which could be several during the year, can be up to $35,000 an award.
A year for life.
Yeah,
and
then
they get more awards later.
This is just all right. Now, Thomas, we're all about solutions, but when I look at the swamp and I see everything with this corruption in Congress and in the federal courts and in the government system, it's my feeling that the only way to solve this is by bringing in military tribunals.
We need to take the top down with military tribunals because they've committed crimes against the state, including now we know Sessions, and we've called him out.
And we really need to get over it. Sessions is criminal. If this can be proven in... Yes.
He's covering so many criminal tracks, it's unbelievable.
He needs to go to Gitmo.
Now, there's a solution. Here's the solution. We've told you this many times. The United States intelligence community has 850,000 people with top secret security clearances. 65 to 67% of them, when I checked this last, are corporate. They work for transnational corporations, international corporations. They are not Americans. Who's the top person in this? That would be top company, Lockheed Martin. They have the largest U.S. military intelligence paid group. 850,000 people have top secret security clearances. That seems like a lot. Not really. Israel has 1,000 Mossad, and most of them don't live in Israel. So we're dealing with a huge war going on. It can all be taken down very simply. Very, very simply. All we have to do is get the corporate influence out of our intelligence, turn it back to the military who reports directly to Trump, and use a confined system. Now, you see, when they tell you that they've hacked government systems, those are lies. Real secure government systems have intranets. They don't use the intranet because they know that it is a poisonous, weaponized system that everyone is allowed to go on now. But because commerce takes place there, it is controlled and has to be allowed to continue for many, many reasons. So all we have to do is get rid of the corporate influence in intelligence. Now, how about the corporate influence in cyber warfare? Why do we even allow these cyber weapons to be made? Because they're benefiting international corporations, and the Highlands Forum coordinated that for many, many years through Andrew Marshall, now Dick O'Neill. And they were basically taking their lead from the Council on Foreign Relations to keep the clash of nations going at all times so that America, through the chaos and the clash, could be supreme. That's why Obama, also because, I'm sorry, Obama thought that he was martyring Muslims by killing them because it started the Muslim crusade and invasion against Europe. So he's actually the leader. You have to see him leading it. So what we have here is the proof that what they told us is true. He, Sessions, would have to have led the senatorial congressional conspiracy to allow Uranium One to ever take place and to allow it to continue, and to allow the investigation of it never to come to light. During the time CFIUS was looking at the case, he would have had to have signed off on 3 or 4 committees to say that that was okay. Now, I want to ask you, anyone out there, is there anyone out there that believes that United States should give over all of our uranium, the uranium market, and all of our uranium missiles, and all of our, basically our entire nuclear weapons to the Russians? So if there's anybody in Congress who believes that's a good thing, I'm telling you right now, they're the Russian spies. They're on the Russian take, and they're doing insider trading because they got their money into the military-industrial complex. There's, the Vanguard. Vanguard is also where Sessions has his money. So Vanguard and these other companies is where these people who are part of this conspiracy get paid. Everybody gets paid. Remember that.
Mr. Magoo needs to go.